Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. We have an unboxing today that is very exciting. It is a buddy unboxing because I unfortunately had my pre-orders screwed up by Multiman Publishing. But Buddy has forwarded to me his copy of Panzers Last Stand to do an unboxing of. This is the latest release in the Battalion Combat series. In this case, it is about the very last armored offensive by Germany in World War II around Budapest in 1945. Game designer here is Carl Fung, who is also the designer of Iron Curtain, the recent SCS entry, of course based on a series design by Dean Essig. So let us take a look at Panzer's Last Stand. So the first thing I notice immediately is that it is in the big 3-inch box. That is great. I anticipate relatively few problems getting all the components back in the box. We can see that Multiman listed as medium complexity, medium solitaire suitability. That's probably fine, but I'm not sure that this level of granularity is actually useful to anyone. It looks like there's a bunch of scenarios as well. Let's open her up and see what the goodies look like. All right, so pretty standard Multiman Publishing 3-inch box. Not exceptionally heavy or thin or anything like that. We have 2 six-sided dice of the standard Multiman variety. We have a little card that tells us what is in the box, which should include a box and a lid, 4 22 by 34 inch map sheets, 6 counter sheets, 1 BCS 2.0 series rulebook, 1 Panzer's Last Stand specific rulebook, 1 BCS support rulebook, 2 BCS charts and tables, 2 player booklets, 3 player aid cards, last Blitzkrieg addenda sheet, and 2 six-sided dice. So let's take a look and see what's all in here. So the last thing they put in the box is the Panzer's Last Stand game specific rules. So this is a 44-page book on the sort of quite thick gamers-esque paper that you would expect. Historical notes are probably relatively heavy, as they tend to be in the gamers' titles. So we have not a ton of game-specific rules here, something like 5 or 6 pages. A little over 5, yeah, about 6 pages total. Lessons learned. Be very curious to read these notes from Dean, and then we get into scenarios. So the taking of a Budapest 1-2-3, the full campaign. So this is first turn, 2nd January 1945, and these are one-day turns, by the way. Last turn, 27 January of 1945. But there is a special condition on which the Axis player can choose to end the game on the 11th, which is interesting, which is only 9 days in. Okay. As you can see, there's a pretty decent amount of units here. The density of troops in this area was pretty high. Operation Conrad 1 and 2, which is 9 days, which is that sort of first phase of this big campaign. Operation Conrad 1, which is only 5 turns. Operation, Conrad 2. So this is super modular in terms of the way the scenarios are set up. So you could pick big scenarios or the big campaign. How many maps is this? I think it's 2 maps. No, it's 4 maps. So, not a small game. The density of, the actual counter density in BCS is not that high. And here's Operation Conrad 3. So, it's 4 maps, but if you compare the area represented on these maps versus the maps in Hungarian Rhapsody, which is one of the recent OCS releases. The maps here cover just a small section of the area around Budapest. So, as is typical for the gamers' games, there's a lot of scenarios here. It looks like there's a meaty scenario selection of different sizes. Here's what looks like Carl's designer's notes, which is going to also be interesting to read. I always recommend reading the designer's notes pretty early on in your reading of the game book. Unless the designer's notes are trash, which is hopefully not, or absent, which is hopefully not the case, because they're going to give you a valuable insight on the designer's perspective in making the design decisions that they made. As you can see, there's extensive designer's notes in here. In addition to very good bibliography, Carl is the research maestro, so I am not surprised that he's got tons of quality sources. So that's item number 1. Item number 2 is the BCS. I almost said BTS again. I don't know what BTS would even be. Series rules. Now, this is a little different format. This is 48 pages, but it's full color. And this is something that I saw in Brazen Chariots as well, the full color series rulebook. And I do think it helps to highlight the things that should be highlighted and to make the game a little more attractive and modernize the presentation a bit. Also, perhaps for the same reason, the paper stock here is a different paper stock. This is more of a satin finish type of stock. And it is, once again, 48 pages. There's a lot of concepts in BCS which, for one thing, I think are really interesting. The snafu rule and the way that supply works in BCS, I think, are really interesting and really innovative. But they are also a bit difficult to grasp. The way combat works is actually very different from the way it works in most traditional Hex Encounter games. So there's a fair amount of video on BCS, including some of mine. So feel free to check that stuff out on YouTube. And I think in at least one of mine, I think Dean actually popped in and answered some questions as well. So Soviet activation display. I have never seen how the Soviets work in BCS before. That's very interesting. All right, so we're now getting into MMP collation Circus here. So map, counters, player aid cards, counters, player book, map, counters, player aid card, book, another display. We'll go through all this in a moment. Another map. There's the errata card. More counters. More book. More map. More counters. And a turn record track. If I have a complaint about BCS, it is the way in which certain types of support, specifically air and artillery, are handled. I think they are handled. I think they're handled to the extent and with the level of abstraction that Dean wanted, and I can respect that. But in both cases, they felt a little unsatisfying to me. In the desert, that might or might not be the case here, since each topic is going to be kind of have its own flavor in terms of how those types of assets were used. Here is a turn record track. This is a display that you set aside and move the counter up the track, and it is on quite heavy card stock. Put that away. Here is let's do the charts and tables first. Here is our last Blitzkrieg addendum card. Extends the original last Blitzkrieg campaign into January of 1945, which is a complaint that some people had, and I completely agreed with Dean on that, about ending the campaign when he did. It ends sooner than a lot of Bulge games end it, but you know who the winner is by that time. So, if you continue playing, I guess that's cool, but I'm not sure it certainly is not a competitive experience at that point. Okay, the BCS charts and tables display card. This is on a quite thick card stock, and it is full color. And I wish the OCS charts and tables were on this kind of card stock. That'd be cool, but they're not. So we get two of those. We get two of these activation displays, one for the Axis, one for the Soviets. It feels like this is some kind of mnemonic tool to help people remember what factors go into the snafu roll, which is fine, or unless the snafu roll works a little differently this time, which maybe it does. That's plausible. Okay, and then we have, all right, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. Soviet Player Book, which is a 4-page leaflet, which just contains the specific Soviet mnemonic aids and order of arrival and a few Soviet-specific tables. And then we have the Axis Player book, which is somewhat beefier in that it is 8 pages. Setup cards. Okay, interesting. Is that what this is? Maybe. So this is maybe not a setup card, maybe a special display for the Conrad 3 scenario. Mini-map, which is nice. Axis Order of Arrival, which is more substantial than the Soviet Order of Arrival. So, again, full color. Now, these are on a kind of a thinnish... it might be the same kind of stock as the game-specific, or as the series rules. Then we have this V2.0 series support book. And I'm not sure I've seen this before. This is interesting. Okay, so what we have here, and it's, again, full color, satin finish paper. It looks like it's 24 pages. It looks like this has, like, the series designer's notes and some introductions to some of the the novel mechanical ideas in BCS. Special thanks to a variety of people. Tips for Playing the Battalion Combat Series Well by Doug Fitch. So what looks like this is like a guidebook to the series, combat train movement flowcharts. That is an aid to learning and improving play with the series. So, all right. So we have 4 big maps. Let's pick this one just because it's got the darkest color that I can see. Just to give you a sense, I'm not going to be able to set this whole thing up, obviously. And this one has part of Budapest on it. And of course, Budapest is a huge city, and was at the time, but is exceptionally huge on this map. And we've got some pretty rough terrain around Budapest as well, but also some open areas. You'll see, I think, that this is the standard Dean Essig map style. Some people I know do not like the Dean Essig map style. I certainly think it is idiosyncratic, but it has never at any point bothered me from a stylistic standpoint. There have been specific games in which the color palette has bothered me, but none of those games have been released anytime recently. And then we have counter sheets. We have 3 counter sheets. 3 counter sheets. We have 3 plus 3 counter sheets. So standard BCS markers. We got one of those. Another one of those. And okay, so there's 2 BCS marker sheets, and BCS does include the sort of rotary pollard markers that are used in some games. Some people don't like those. Actually found that at the density level that BCS operates, it did not bother me at all. And then we have 4 sheets of counters. Here you can see that we have, and starting in Brazen Chariots, BCS does color code the units at the formation level with these colored stripes. So that's a huge thing that I'm a bit baffled that they didn't occur to them when they did last Blitzkrieg, which is I think the biggest game in terms of number of units on the map, I think. And it could really have benefited from that. So as you can see, we have some Soviet units. These green guys are Romanians, possibly. Something like that. Certainly a traditional color for Romanians to be in World War II games. Here we have a whole bunch more Soviet units. Now these are on the newer, thicker white core stock from MMP. These are a satisfying thickness, if you ask me, and do not compare unfavorably to the thicker brown core counters. They're not quite as thick, but you know, beyond a certain thickness, it doesn't really matter anymore, right? If we could all be battle line, we would all be battle line with their counters probably 3 times this thick. But these are they feel nice and heavy in the fingers. Let me put it that way. Here you have all your different formation markers. We're also getting into the various German formations here as well. Of course, a lot in the series works at the formation level. And the formations in this context tend to be divisions, but there's nothing that says that they have to be. You can see certainly we have individual Panzer divisions, but we also have some Kampfgruppen as well. So again, counters look nice as well. All right, so that has been a quick look at the guts of Panzer's Last Stand, latest in the Battalion Combat series from designer Carl Fung, series designer Dean Essig, and Multi-Man Publishing. This is a really interesting set of rules, and I would encourage folks to investigate this series of rules if you're interested in World War II battles at this scale. There are 4. This is the 4th game in the series at this point. There is the first one, the Last Blitzkrieg, which is the Battle of the Bulge. There are 2 that are set in North Africa, Baptism by Fire and Brazen Chariots. And now we have Panzer's Last Stand, which is the battles around Budapest. Now, this is also a topic that we don't really see covered all that much, right? This is sort of a weird, the big Soviet push is driving on Berlin. There's also a lot happening down here as well. And it's fair, having played Hungarian Rhapsody, which this is sort of a small segment of, topically. There is a lot of interesting things going on down here. So please do check this out if you are interested. And I'm sure that folks have done video that you can watch on YouTube once this video releases. So please check that out. So thanks for watching. Please do like the video if you found it useful. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to help support Ardwulf's Lair, please do check out the various links in the video description, the Patreon, the merch store, and the Ko-Fi. And until next time, thanks for watching and happy wargaming.